on, you lot, come on.
Don't be shy, people. Be ready for you to... Oh, do I get one of those?
Oh, you got one? Why's everybody bailing on me going, ah?
Be sure you didn't bring these species with you.
Only 4 of them.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Okay, you lot, can you be kind enough to come against this side? This is what we're going to call organised confusion, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put down here an N with a plus. Why am I putting down there? So we're going from low to what? High, and that one over there is a nitrate weed type plant. Okay, now as a general comment, your smaller plants tend to be sort of sitting in here. Often what you'll find is you'll get your taller grasses probably sitting in here, which can be a bit taller. Now somebody's got a wet plant. Ah, you're onto it. So Bernie, that one there is a little bit odd, isn't it? So what we're going to do is we're going to put this one, if you rehydrate your landscape, it's a very highly productive plant. We're going to sit this one right at the other door. I'm not going to mark your thing, but that's the wet plant there. So when you start thinking about plant succession, you're going to go from low to high. As a general comment, it tends to be from short to what? Tall, the taller and more productive plants. The challenge that you've got in front of you is that you may only have short plants, but they may be what? Really tall ones. So hands up those that actually know what they're holding. Okay, about half. That's good. That's all right. Okay. As a general comment, would you say most landholders are really good with plant identification?
No. Not this one. No.
I've only been doing this for 20 plus years and I haven't found a group that goes, yes. So plant identification is an issue, but we want to move past the plant identification and think about the form and function of the plant. And we also need to remember when we start to get towards some of these better quality grasses, whatever you choose to be better quality grasses, it's still a monoculture because guess what? It's still a grass. Okay? So what we'll try and do in this organised confusion, can anybody that suggests they've got a nitrate weed, so, okay, so you head off. No, I think you're right.
But I've got a low one. I don't have a high one. Mine spreads out. So
not quite. Yes, excellent. Okay. So, Simon, do you want to talk about yours quickly? You reckon it's a what?
It's a nitrate weed. It's devil's fig.
Devil's fig. Yeah. How long ago did I pick that plant? Yeah, I think that one can be one. So that's a wet one.
Yeah, it is.
So the main thing you think about this one is that it's high in nitrate. How quickly is this thing going to decompose? Very rapidly. So it's part of the closing that nitrate cycle pretty quickly. And it's prickly, yep. Now, what do you reckon this one looks like? Nightshade. Can you tell me what other nitratey weeds, what comes around a cattle camp? Stock camp.
Well, devil's fig and nightshade.
Yep. Do you get any of the mallows or the amaranths?
no, not here.
Right, not here.
Mexican poppy.
Mexican poppy?
Poppy comes around, yeah.
Okay. Stinking Roger?
Yeah, we don't tend to have too much stinking Roger here. It's more just a little bit south of here.
Okay. So, what other nitrate plants, folks? That's about it? Okay. If you think about it this way, what other plants, what you describe as low fertility plants? If we come down this end, who's got a genuine low fertility weed? Cobbler's peg? Yeah, probably more. Now, here's my challenge. Once I put one down, we're going to try and work off it. Yeah.
Got a bit of a taproot, but it's...
It has got a bit of a taproot. Has anybody actually got cobblers, peg cobblers? We'll put this one down as a general one, okay. Put the roots down, this one, tap-rooted. Now,
It's a nitrate.
it's definitely a legume. It's a running legume. High or low fertility? You've got a 50% chance on this one. I tend to think of a higher fertility plant as a general language. Okay, can I just pinch this one? What's this one? Yep, tends to be a sort of low fertility. Now here it is it on this side or is it on this side? I'm thinking probably a little more this side. Yep, okay. Now, I'm going to have to go a little bit quicker with some of these. Can I just grab this one?
That goes that way.
Okay. Low fertility. Okay, now we'll start on this one. Heading up this one. Now, remember what I said out in the paddock, what can happen? Graham, back again. What would you call this one? Low or high, medium fertility? Here's the challenge. This, if you are in a medium fertility, may be your best grass. But if you're in a landscape up there, you go, I don't want this. Rubbish. Okay, so this one. Yep, you can feel how coarse it is. It's a lot tougher, right? I've got to try and keep going a bit quicker. Now, what's this one? Help me. This one's called Haven't Got a Clue. Hey?
What colour's the sap in it?
I don't know, find out. Is it toxic?
That's one of the milkweeds.
One of the milkweeds? Where's the milkweed go, folks? I'm thinking more of up here. Maybe wrong though. Okay. What's this one? Rhodes grass. Okay, so we've got two of these. You can see I got highly excited how tall it was. Now, is it above or below this one? How far below?
Way below.
Way below. Keep coming.
This guy, yeah.
Even worse than this one.
Around the same, yeah.
Okay, right. Now, what's this one? Where does it go? Cytojudas? About there? Okay. Right. So, is it here or here? Which side? Down. How far? Further? God.
That was brought to Australia for dairy fodder.
Dairy fodder. Okay. All right. Cobbler's peg. Where did we say cobbler's peg was? These tend to be a little bit of a taproot group in here. Yep. What's this one? Purple on the bottom.
Back up this way.
How far?
Well, no, it's going to be somewhere this side of the rose grass probably. Depends if what sort of what you want, which side of the rose grass it would be.
Excellent comment. Okay, who's finished? What do you call this one?
That's just Cytojudas.
So fertility-wise, low? Really low? Here. Okay. So you're on... I'll grab this one. What do you call this one?
What's it called?
said rubbish.
You've actually got two different grasses there. For
Okay,
start.
okay, I'll put that one down.
That was the confusing part.
Okay, don't throw that one out. Okay, gee, you've got to watch these people. Ken, do you want to talk a little bit about what you're saying out there with the cooch with the dry weather? Yep, go for it, mate.
We're finding here now is what we're finding here now is inter-row changes along with what I believe is climate change. Our inter-rows used to be full of mainly Rhodes grass. We planted Rhodes grass for the point is that the green lacewings breed in it, and that they attack mango scale and most other scale insects and stuff in there. What we're finding now with the winds, we're getting like this year there's been about 5 months of wind, all in excess of 20 kilometres an hour here on the coast and a lot higher. And we're going 7 or 8 months without rain or any noticeable rain. Some of them grasses are disappearing and these wire grasses are now starting to take over. If you look along where the irrigators are, the sprinklers are, where it's getting wet, them other grasses are staying there. But in the centre where it's not, they're taking over. And we've noticed some of that a little bit in the paddocks even, and where you start irrigating, the better grasses are going and taking over these. And we're finding that, I put it down to climate change is what happening, because of the 25 years of records I've got here, the only 2 months that are stable, which you've got over 15 of them 25 years, is either average or above average, is December and January. The next ones is 13 years, which is April and May, and everything else is below 10. 8s, 10s and 6s, which are average or better in every other month. And it is changing in things, and we're far below that. And the charts I've done have put a difference of 20% either side of the average rainfall. Now our average rainfall is still maintaining it for our annual growth, but during the year it is changing it into so much more. And we notice that in the way the mangoes are flowering, the way they're ripening, and the things that are happening in here in a big way. Also notice it by tidal increases coming up. 20 odd years ago we built barbecues down on the banks of the saltwater creek there. The tide now covers that 3 or 4 times a year. The barbecue's sitting there, cemented rock barbecue sitting there surrounded by the tide. We've noticed these things happening on this property. Some of the smaller causeways we've got down here, we put them 8-10 metres above a 6.2, 6.3 metre tide. Salt water runs into them now on big tides without rain. These are those things we've noticed here, and the lifting of the changing of the grasses and a few other things like that. There's most of this in the inter-rows there. The other thing that's taking over with some of that is actually some of your cooches, which is actually choking out the wire grass if you can get that to grow. But again, they're a pretty hardy grass that's in there, you know. There's a bit of blue cooch and stuff starting to take over in some of them. That's, you know, that's a pretty hardy Queensland grass that will handle a dry a bit. Most of our grasses do stay green all year. It's not as if they go brown, but that's the thing we're noticing is they're drawing so much off. The top section of your soil is crusting about that much due to, I reckon, the wind. And again, we've got excess magnesium in these soils too, which is a problem. Yeah.
Thanks, Ken. So one of the things you're going to start thinking about is when you see a plant like this, what root system does it have? Sorry? Shallow, yep. And it's got what we call stolons, in other words, very thick, coarse roots. So the plant has the ability to be able to withstand the seasonal conditions. So what happens, I think, or what will be happening is that these type of plants, so I tend to use the term the golden nuggets, So you can have stolons, you can have bulbs and cornices, well, other words. The ability for the plant to survive is because its root system is so large that the top can come and go and it can keep coming back all the time. So where is this one going to go? Yep. So how far up here? Yep. So is it this side or that side? Yep. I tend to put it up fairly high because it can be quite productive, but again, it depends on your soil type. So we'll just go through. What about this one? Not so good? Okay, yep. It's one of those tap-rooted ones. It tends to be quite fine, this one. Okay, now we got fleabane. Is it a low fertility or high fertility plant? Sorry? It's bringing fertility up, but where does it grow? In low fertility or high fertility spots? Low. It tends to be sort of where it's very bare. So we've got a lot of tap-rooted plants in here, but this plant here is a very different plant. Why? Because it grows so tall. Okay, so I'm going to sort of set it up more towards this one. Now, you've got another legume here. What's this one? Yep. Did you get my chicory for me? Thank you. No, it's just... Okay. So what we're just saying, legume-wise? Oh, you were hiding it. Well, sorry, I apologise. So we're dealing with another legume here. So I'm going to sit this one here. Chicory, what does this also look like? If you sorry? Yeah. If you were looking through a herb book, what other plants would you see with a leaf like this? Not as big. Comfrey, one of the very few plants that produce B12, and you can have put comfrey in for your composting. If this was a lot smaller, remember that slide I showed you and said how many plants can you see? Plantain. So similar plant, broadleaf, all got a really big taproot. Low or high fertility? I tend to think it's quite high. Now, when I'm saying that, for it to grow well, so I tend to put it up in the highest zones. Okay, we're now going to you at the back. Yep. Snakeweed. Where do you put snakeweed? This way? How far this way? Lower? Okay. That's one of those problem plants. It definitely is a problem plant. Just 2 seconds. What's this little one with a little white flower to it? It's another one of those weeds. Is this another one of those weeds as well? Thank you. Okay, I'll try and get this group back together. It's hard to work with, but we'll be right. Okay, what's this one? Now, notice with the milk thistle, it's basically, it's floppy, it's pretty useless. It's like a nitrate weed, isn't it? I don't class it as a nitrate weed. It is very much a herb, but fertility-wise, low, medium or high? I tend to put up higher as a general comment. I don't see it in sort of poor qualities ground. So I'm going to pop it in there, probably won't sit about there, but very important herb. What the heck's this one? First of all, I don't know if your camera can pick it up, but see how the fine hairs on it? Can you see that one? Really fine hairs. Also, it's trying to taproot in. I don't know what this one is. Any suggestions? We're thinking it may be digit grass. If it was digit grass, is it down here or is it up here? If it's digit grass, would it be down there or up here? Normally it's a lot higher. Yep. So at the moment we're getting the coarser grasses. We're getting these, what they call herbs and forbs, sitting in the middle. Then we've got these other grasses, better quality grasses. Then we've got these next lot of legumes. Then we hit that higher fertility. Nitrate weeds at the top, and then the very wet plants at the top of that. Okay, I'm assuming kangaroo. If this, kangaroo I'm assuming? Yep. So kangaroo grass, where is it? You're saying from a stock perspective, really be fertile, but you're putting it down there. Which country are you on? For sure. Yep. So I'm going to put it up fairly high. How high are we going? Near the roads. Okay. See him there? Good. I'm going to have to speak louder I'm just going to come straight through here, sir. Already got that one? Right. Just show me what you've got. What's this one? Hemp. Sun hemp. Not weed. Okay. Okay. Is it a high fertility plant, low or medium? It depends where you plant it. So it's a very versatile plant. I wouldn't class it as a low fertility plant. Wow. So I'm going to probably put it up this way, up higher.
But at the moment it's down there for us.
Yep. Right. Who have we missed? I'll grab that one. This one's a legume. Tends to be a fairly high fertility one, I'm assuming. Who haven't we got? This one's got a little purple, sort of bluey purple flower to it. Any ideas, Keen? Hang on, just 2 seconds.
That's Wandering Jew.
Wandering Jew, right. Wandering Jew, is it high, medium or low, kind of like her? Where would you put it, Mary? Goes with kangaroo grass? Oh, we'll stick it next to that one then. Okay. Who's still got one? I'm just trying to pick. I'll grab that one for the moment. You've done yours, and we got a legume here. You've got 2. That's the same as that one. Okay, I'll ignore yours, sorry. Okay, little comment here, please. What do you call this one? Sorry? It's a love grass. If this was smaller in the same sort of family, it's like a poa and tends to grow with fairly shallow root systems, tends to grow on what I call lower fertility. So is this one here this side or this side of it? You'll put them right down the bottom? Now it's interesting, this plant tends to grow fairly short and its root system's fairly short at the same time. That one, I don't know, I'm just going to get you to hold that one for a second. Okay, I'm trying to make this one the last one because you've been very, very patient and thank you. What do you call this one? Face bean? High or low fertility? Can you say that again?
So the Phasey bean is what's considered a naturalised legume these days. So it's an introduced species 45 or so years ago as a legume, pasture legume. These days you'll still find it in our cane paddocks fairly regularly. It's fairly hardy, but it likes reasonable fertility to actually grow at all. Like it won't grow in a really low fertility situation. But even in a high fertility situation, it only gets so big. So yeah, it's not very productive. Yeah, very stalky. It can get very stalky as it gets big, but it has bugger all leaf on it. Yeah, so
Right.
from a production point of view, it's pretty cheap.
Okay, so where are you going to... We've got some legumes here, right? And we've got some further down. Simon, would this one be above or below this group of legumes?
Yeah, I'd put it below. So it'll be more like where this colour is.
Right. Okay, so what I want you to start thinking about, and I'll just talk you through this one, you literally could have a rock at one side and you could have some moss and some lichens. Then you often get those small little grasses coming up. And if anybody done, if you go to a golf course, you see a lot of those sort of tight, small grasses type things. So just think about small grasses. Then you've got your poorer quality grasses. The reason why they're there is they're partly protecting the soil, but also when they fall over, the organic matter that they produce is not going to, it's going to take a long time to break down. Your next grass you're looking at here is actually looking at a runner. Then we sort of come into the coarser, like the higher silica plants. Your general weeds here. You remember that slide I talked about going from a pioneer to herbs and forbs? But in a secondary succession, which we call agriculture, we call these, generally speaking, as weeds. Then you've got this one here is a lot bigger. So this is your jackhammer. But with your jackhammer, we haven't got the really big root systems. Why? Because we can't pull them out and look at them. You've got a legume here, which is a higher order legume. You've got your general grasses. Then from about here onwards, the main thing I want you to think about is that most of these here are very soft plants. They decompose very rapidly. And because they can decompose very rapidly, it's telling you the fertility is relatively high. Then when we get to the very end, remember that graph went up, up, up to the top and then peaked? That's literally where the nitrate weeds are coming in. They're going to take up the organic matter very rapidly and they're going to recycle it. The very last lot of weeds on the end of the wet weeds, they're very, very productive. Phragmites would also be probably like the king of plants on the end of that one. Now I'm just looking at time. Yep. Are there any questions that you're going to ask me? Because when I move off of this, we're then going to move into some other stuff as well. So I've got a bit of time for questions. Lantana is a bush. I'll just talk about what lantana is, form and function. So a bush is a plant that actually goes right to the end of the, covers the ground. It's multi-sprigged, in other words, it goes out and it has a series of sprigs coming through. Lantana, as a general comment, seems to be, it doesn't grow, depends which ones you're looking at, but tends to be, I think of more of a higher fertility compared to really crap soils. What you're going to find is that the lantana itself is trying to guard the soil. It's like a blackberry. So I probably tend to put lantana further up that way.
What would you recommend as a really good weed to come after lantana?
What would you recommend to be a really good weed to come after lantana? For me, I haven't seen one. Can anybody help us on that one? If you've got lantana, what's the next succession plant coming through? Hang on, just...
Well, most of the time, if you've cleared your lantana, you've got fertile soil underneath, so whatever grasses you put there or legumes will grow. So, but you've got to get rid of the lantana first. And that's...
So it may not be commercially viable. Some people have actually mulched the lantana. So with lantana, and I'd like to do this one day, take a soil test from underneath the lantana and take it from outside. It is an accumulator. It actually is building that soil. And I'm not joking, but if people were trying to build their soil carbon and get paid for it, and Lantana was able to do the quickest result, we wouldn't class Lantana as a weed anymore because we'd say it's a productive plant. So because we're dealing with stock, we're saying it's a weed. If we're dealing with grown topsoil, you may not say it's a weed as much. Okay, a couple of other questions?
Clean fibrous roots against the hairy roots.
Okay, so the clean fibrous roots, good point. What you're going to find is that a lot of the poorer quality plants, when you actually, if you go do a dig, sniff and look, take a bucket of water with you, take the roots and soak them in the water, and you're going to find the higher fertility plants in particular have a lot more fine fibrous roots. The soil biology in association with that encourages that. But when you come down this way, you'll probably find that you don't have what we call a cling effect. So if you get your soil and pull it out, if you've got a nice healthy soil, you often don't even see the root systems because they're covered in earth. So the biology is so active, it's actually getting the aggregation to hang around that root system. So it's a general comment, the higher your fertility, the more you're going to end up with root surface area. As a general comment, and this is one of the things you need to think about with some of these poorer quality plants down here, is it's particularly the root systems that are doing most of the work. Whereas when you tend to get up there, root to shoot ratio, you tend to see a lot more productive plants on the top with the shoots and not quite so much with the roots at the bottom. Now, as an interesting comment here, if you think of the 16 plants, just a couple of things. How many prickles, we had devil's fig, but how many prickles, thistles did we see? As a general comment, yeah, a couple, but really not too much. We've got that one there for sure. So when you look at thinking about, when we had that presentation at the beginning, we talked about reading the landscape. When you go into different landscapes, the plants are going to start to reflect that. What's some of the features of a thistle? Yep. So I've got a taproot down, but often thistles are highly hairy. So often when you go to a drier climate, you get more thistles because they've actually got the ability to take the moisture out of the air, because when you get that small water cycling functioning, they can hold the water. So here, they don't seem to be doing as wide as well. Right, any other questions? Well, it's a good question. What type of fertiliser you could put? As a basic one, when you've got nitrate weeds up here, the use of sugar can work. These sort of situations here, normally your phosphorus and your potassium and everything's going reasonably well, because that's why they're growing so well. As a general comment, I'd say from about here downwards, I'd be looking at trying to get some phosphorus up, because often with the lower fertility, you're low in phosphorus. Now, as a general comment, the reason why phosphorus is important is because it builds, phosphorus is needed to push the energy to get the root system to go down and the grass seeds to come on the top. So I've got another list which I can send out to you, and lower fertility grasses tends to be phosphorus. Then once we've got phosphorus levels reasonably good, we make the unavailable phosphorus more available by putting calcium on. And then those plants down there, I'm assuming the phosphorus levels will be quite high. That's what we call high fertility plants. Sorry? You're high in phosphorus with those? Okay, well, I'll be starting to look at what your calcium's doing, because if you've got high phosphorus levels, you should be doing better than that by a mile. So have a look at how much calcium's in your soil, because a lot of soils up here are low in calcium. I'll catch up to your lunch too. Okay, any other questions, please? We're all good. So just before we break, I've been talking for a while. I want you to think a little bit about where are you on your landscapes or in your farms, where are you in this situation? Are you dealing mainly with plants up in this end? Are you dealing with plants up in this end? Or are you dealing with plants up at this end? Now, I'm not going to ask you which one you are, because it gets a bit embarrassing, But just start thinking to yourself, and this was a good question someone said, is that if you think about it this way, this section of plants here, those are going to die off, and these are going to what? Increase. Then these are going to die off, and these are going to increase. And then these are going to die off, and these are going to increase. The problem is when you get dieback, what happens? The succession goes what? Way backwards. And then it's the tap-rooted plants that come in to start to get the remineralisation to take the nutrients from down deep and recycling them up on the top. So when you have a dieback and you have a collapse, you go from there way back, then these tap-rooted plants come to recycle it through. That make sense? So, yes, a couple of big questions. Any other questions? Yep. Hang on.
With this group of grasses through here and the legumes, apart from a couple of them, they've all been introduced and planted. The ones down the bottom there are all natives that are coming through for healing. So unless you plant these into your environment, they're not going to be there for when succession takes over.
I would say yes, but I'm going to say also no, meaning that what happens is that how much seed is around the environment? Lots from there down. What often happens though is that as you get higher fertility, these plants will slowly start to come in, but in small numbers. Once you see a couple of these interplanted plants coming in, that means you can justify the reason to start sowing them in. But when people try and go from there and plant these, it doesn't work. So what you're trying to do is when you do start to see these better plants coming in and you want to try and compress time to get there from point A to point B quicker, that's the time to start looking at sowing. Okay, we're going to take a break.